Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our regularly scheduled City Council meeting. It's Tuesday, June 18th, 2024. We're going to open this meeting. I'm going to call this meeting to order. And then we're going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing as we have words of inspiration delivered by our own council member, Bruce Anderson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Lord, we thank you for this day and this opportunity to gather together. We ask you to put your blessings upon this meeting and upon our entire community. In all things we give you thanks and praise. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Councilmember Anderson. Roll call, please, Michelle.
Councilmember Anderson.
Here.
Councilmember Binkowski.
Here.
Mayor Milan.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett.
Present.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Councilmember Shepherd is not with us this evening. We wish him well today. Moving on to item number 6 is public comment for items on the agenda. If anyone here would like to speak to an item on our agenda, we welcome you to come to the podium. We'll allot you 3 minutes. And not seeing a rush towards the podium, we will move on from public comments to item 7, which is proclamations and presentations. The first item we have is a proclamation.
Madam Mayor, I respectfully suggest we have not approved the agenda.
Okay. Oh, did I skip approving the agenda? I did. Sorry about that.
Madam Mayor, I move that we amend the agenda to add item 9H, discussion of the Coucil Skate Park.
Okay. Support. Roll call, please, Michelle. Oh, wait, are we making the motion to approve the agenda as is, just adding 9H?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. And what's the 9H again?
Discussion of this Coucil Skate Park.
Clausen
Skate Park.
Skate Park, okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Binkowski.
Yes.
Mayor Milan.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett.
Yes. Thank you. We've approved our agenda and added item 9H, which is discussion of Coucil Steak Park. I wanted to say steakhouse because that sounds really good right now. Okay, we are going to go to item number 7, which is proclamations. We have 2 proclamations this evening. The first one is a proclamation in observation of Juneteenth. Whereas on January 1st, 1863, President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring that all persons held as slaves within any state or designated part of a state, the people whereof shall then be in rebellion against the United States, shall be then, thenceforward, and forever free. And whereas President Lincoln correctly believed that slavery was a violation of the principles of the Declaration of Independence and that its abolition represented a new birth of freedom for the United States. And whereas on June 19th, 1865, 2.5 years after President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, Union soldiers, led by Major General Gordon Granger, landed at Galveston, Texas, with news that the Civil War was over and that the enslaved were now free. And whereas the following year, the first official Juneteenth celebration took place in Texas, and those celebrations have continued throughout the United States over the years, making it the oldest nationally celebrated commemoration of the end of slavery. And whereas Juneteenth celebrations take place throughout the nation to include readings of the Emancipation Proclamation, prayer and worship services, cultural performances, community service events, and other meaningful observances. And whereas citizens of the City of Coucil are encouraged to recognize Juneteenth as a way to learn and celebrate our rich history, reflecting on the fact that freedom is a precious gift as we continue to work to create a more perfect union. Now, therefore, I, Paula Milan, Mayor of the City of Coucil, do hereby recognize June 19th, 2024 as Juneteenth in the City of Coucil, Michigan, and ask our citizens to reflect and give thanks to be part of a nation that celebrates freedom for all. And since we're talking about Juneteenth, just a little public service announcement. Our city facilities will all be closed on Juneteenth in recognition of this holiday. We'll move on to the next item, which is a proclamation recognizing Pride Month in the City of Coucil. Whereas the mayor and council of the city of Coucil welcomes and encourages diversity, inclusion, and acceptance of all people within our community. And whereas the city of Coucil is proud to be known as the little city with the big heart, a place where we pride ourselves on being welcoming and inclusive of people of all thoughts and beliefs. And whereas Coucil is a place where we welcome education, engagement, and dialogue to build understanding of people of all walks of life to live together peacefully. And whereas we are committed to remain vigilant in deterring oppression and discrimination against people on the basis of sex, gender identity or expression, or sexual orientation. And whereas we affirm our support for all members of our community and remain steadfast to protect the civil rights of all residents and support their abilities to live openly, equally, without fear, and with dignity. And whereas by protecting the rights of every individual, we enhance and strengthen the value of our entire society. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Coucil on the 18th day of June 2024 that the Council recognizes Pride Month, and we urge all residents to demonstrate love and respect to all people during this month and every month. Next up, we will move to item 8, and we'll move to consideration of approving the following consent agenda. Item 8A is minutes of the regular city council meeting held on Tuesday, June 4th, 2024. And item B is a list of bills in the amount of $428,694.49.
I move the consent agenda be approved as presented.
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Michelle.
Councilmember Binkowski.
Yes.
Mayor Milan.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett.
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Thank you. We've approved our consent agenda. We move on to item 9, which is new business. Under 9A, we have consideration of the fourth quarter budget amendments for fiscal year 2023 and 2024.
I move the fourth quarter budget amendments effective on 6/18/2024 for fiscal year 2023 to 2024 be approved as presented.
Support.
Thank you. Mr. Raker?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Per the Uniform Budgeting and Accounting Act, Public Act 2 of 1968, except as otherwise provided in Section 19, a deviation from the original General Appropriations Act shall not be made without amending the General Appropriations Act. Subject to Section 16, subsection 2, the legislative body of the local unit shall amend the General Appropriations Act as soon as it becomes apparent that a deviation from the original General Appropriations Act is necessary and the amount of the deviation can be determined. A summary of the budget amendments is as follows. General Fund 101. The net impact of the budget amendments will change the previous amended budget surplus of $407,402 to an amended budget surplus of $244,826. Major Street Fund 202. The net impact of the budget amendments will change the previous amended budget deficit of $88,187 to an amended budget deficit of $111,137. Local Street Fund 203, the net impact of the budget amendments will change the previous amended budget deficit of $95,207 to an amended budget deficit of $123,553. Refuse Collection Fund 226, the net impact of the budget amendments will change the previous balanced budget to a net surplus of $7,250. DDA Fund 248, the net impact of the budget amendments will change the previous budget surplus of $19,853 to an amended net surplus of $23,603. Library Fund 271, the net impact of the budget amendments will change the previous budget deficit of $27,360 to an amended budget break-even balance of $0. Infrastructure and Parks Debt 301, the net impact of the budget amendments will change the previous deficit of $9,943 to an amended budget surplus of $4,139. Capital Projects Funds 401, the net impact of the budget amendments will change the previous budget deficit of $942,951 to an amended budget deficit of $889,500. Water and Sewer Fund 592. The net impact of the budget amendments will change the previous budget surplus of $207,069 to an amended budget deficit of $544,291. Motor Equipment Fund 667, the net impact of the budget amendments will change the previous budget surplus of $186,661 to an amended surplus of $180,001. All other funds have been reviewed for the fourth quarter and do not need amendments at this time.
Does anyone have any?
Our finance director is here
Yep.
as well to discuss if necessary.
So just for discussion, the letter that was included in the packet was, there's changes from the procedures from the previous finance director to the practices that are going on now. And so the only question I have is, so when we did the budget for the 24-25, right, the foundation was these numbers. So how does all of these changes and moving around and change in philosophical approach affect everything that we did for the next fiscal year? Because the foundation, the starting point was obviously where we were with this budget, right?
Yeah, the main differences are, there's a lot in personnel, there's a lot in retiree costs, but now that this is our budget as opposed to someone else's budget, we won't have amendments like this going forward. We'll have, I'm used to standard less than 100, even in a bad year, even if we have issues, but, I'm gonna say that, we'll have budget amendments probably line item wise less than 50, and we had close to 600 because her budget was different, but mainly it was distribution of personnel, distribution of specific line items that were removed, ones that were combined. It's just, for me, the philosophy change was, this is what worked for me here for 18 years. It's what worked for everybody, because I felt like we didn't have tons of budget amendments in years past.
So is it a true statement to say that the budget that you constructed for the next fiscal year was not necessarily predicated on any of the balances? Because that's what we're ending up with, a lot of different balances and some negative and that kind of thing. Wasn't predicated on the balances from the previous fiscal year. You just, you constructed it in a whole new philosophy.
Right, kind of started from scratch for the most part. A lot of the line items were duplicates from previous years. Those didn't change much. But there were significant numbers of personnel, retiree costs, and other line items that, again, there was an attempt to combine some that didn't make sense to me. There was an attempt to separate some that didn't make sense to me. So I kind of went back to what worked. And true, it's a different set of numbers and line items that caused a lot of these budget amendments, which in the future should not happen. I'll say will not happen. I won't even say should.
And so it doesn't affect the beginning balances for anything for the next fiscal year?
No, the amendments that City Manager Raker just read from a fund standpoint will be close. I mean, we'll end up, I think I estimated somewhere around 95% of our expenditures. We always have a little bit of buffer in line items, and we'll end up around 95, which will get us a surplus in the neighborhood of between 400 and 500, I think, which is where we were. But to start, there was a huge deficit, if you remember going back to last budget amendments, but it was because grants were budgeted that we didn't receive, and we removed all that. So this, to me, is more of the true numbers of where we're at and where we're going to end the year. But, absolutely the numbers that we did for 4-5, somewhat based on this, but quite a few changes, significant changes.
But also fair to say that it's an accounting style difference.
Yes.
There's no impropriety here. Had our former finance director still been here and continued along the same path of what she set up, we wouldn't have experienced some of these
Right.
numbers, right? Because she had a different
Her-
style. She
Yeah.
put all costs associated with something together. You've broken them back out to a way that works better for you.
Yes.
Right? I just want to be fair because I don't want any aspersions cast at all.
No.
Okay, great. Thank you. Does anyone else have anything?
I read the amendments. I'm satisfied with what I saw.
Great. Okay, thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you.
Roll call, please, Michelle.
Mayor Milan,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett,
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Binkowski.
Yes.
Thank you. We have just approved fourth quarter budget amendments effective on 6/18 for fiscal year 23-24. They have been approved as presented. We'll move on to the next item, which is consideration of the proposed 2024-2025 city department fee schedules.
I move the proposed fee schedule is adopted and the following fees relating to various sections of the city code and activities of the city are hereby established, and the various city departments are authorized to charge and collect such fees effective July 1, 2024.
Support.
Thank you. Mr. Raker,
Ma'am, Nick Stepnitz championed this item, so.
Mr. Stepnitz.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In October of 2021, the City Council entered into an agreement with Municipal Analytics to produce financial tools for the city. One of those items was an analysis of our fee schedule. The analysis included market studies, collection of data from departmental staff, analyzing comparable municipalities, and ensuring fees are appropriate within framework of the City of Clawson City Charter and ordinances. The fee schedule that was approved for FY 23-24 included the recommendations from Municipal Analytics. The attached user fee schedule includes current fees that were adopted for FY 23-24 and the proposed fees for FY 24-25. Any changes are notated with red ink to clearly indicate any modification with a brief explanation. The proposed fee schedule for the city clerk's office, library, parks, recreation, police, fire, and treasurer's office do not include any changes from the fee schedule adopted last year. The Department of Public Works and Building Department include proposed changes that are more in line with the direct, indirect, and overhead costs associated with a specific fee. If there are any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
I, of course, have something to discuss. So looking at the city hall room activities in the park shelters, I see that employees and retirees for both of those, both the city hall and the park shelter, have a significantly cheaper cost than residents. And I think that's worth discussing. If anyone noticed that, so City Hall for a weekday, if I'm a resident, it's $40. But if I'm an employee or retiree, it's only $20. And I don't think that's fair to our residents to be charged double what, non-residents and employees would be. Same thing with the park shelter. If I'm a resident, to get a weekday park shelter, it's $75. A non-resident's $150, but an employee or retiree is only $38. And that just doesn't seem, I would like to either see the residents get the same discounts that the employees get, or the employees be charged either. I could see employees being charged the same as residents because they have investment in the community, but to have them be significantly less than a resident doesn't seem respectful of the residents to me.
Well, I guess going to standard practices, is it standard practice for retirees and employees to get a better rate than residents in general?
So unfortunately, our fee schedule doesn't show when certain fees were established, and so I believe this is one that has been around for quite some time and just hasn't really been touched because it hasn't come up in conversation. It doesn't mean that it can't change. And if the council wanted to have something to be more equitable between members of the community, non-residents, and then employees, retirees, I think that would make sense. I can see where you're coming from.
And to be fair, I'm sure I looked at this last time I was on council all 4 years and never noticed it. So, I get how it's probably been in place and not noticed, but just in looking through it, I happened to notice that, and I just thought it was worth a look at.
So what would you propose?
Well, I either say residents get the same discount that employees do, or employees pay the same price as residents. I think actually the latter is probably more equitable, having them pay the same as a resident, because as I said, the people that work here, whether they live here or not, they have a investment in the community, they can be treated like residents. They shouldn't necessarily be subject to the non-resident fee. So maybe the employees get, regardless of where they reside, get the resident fee would be an equitable solution. So I I amend my motion to change any instance of employee retiree fees to be leveled up to equivalent to what residents would be charged for said product or service.
Support.
Do we want to hit the retirees while we're at it, or not? I mean,
Well, because retirees, I'm taking that just as retirees cities, not retirees from GM or whatever, and so.
I would
yeah.
like to, can we clarify what that means?
Yeah.
I don't-
Yeah, that
honestly
was,
don't.
the intent was to be former staff, so retirees of Clausen.
Okay, so retirees and serving employees are the same category.
Right.
All right.
How often do we rent out the City Hall activity room?
How many times a year do you think that is?
I would say that's relatively rare. I mean, a couple times a month, probably. I mean, I don't have the numbers, but with the new service with RecPro, we'll be able to get those statistics a little bit easier. I don't mean to plug that, but that's the truth of it. I don't know if Mr. Jennings could provide some more data.
I imagine the pavilion gets a lot more use.
Yeah, I think January 1st is when we start taking reservations.
Any other, did anyone have any other concerns with the
It's not,
cost?
it's not a concern, but it's a question. I noticed that the FOIA numbers appear on multiple pages, like it's on almost every single page. Is that just a formatting thing, or was that the FOIA cost and information is on almost every single page in this fee thing? Is that just an error?
Yeah, that's intentional. So each department will take their pages of the fee schedule and have that on their own part of their website and at their own department. And so that way it's just clear that each department has the ability to have items be FOIA'd at that rate.
Gotcha. So if I had a FOIA request for a vacant building, and it's just being clarifying for each section. Okay, that makes sense. Cool. That's all I got.
Okay, just,
So you're proposing we take away the city?
No, it was a question. It was a question.
I'm sorry, but I'm just going back to your original
Oh, yeah.
proposal.
Proposal.
So we're basically saying we're going to take a perk away from the city employees.
And so that they pay the same as the residents, so that they don't have a better advantage for getting access to the pavilion and City Hall than residents do.
Yes, known as a perk. They have
Yeah.
currently have a perk, and you'd like to take the perk away.
If that's the way you want to phrase
I'm
it.
just- there's two ways to look at it.
I'm saying that we are being more respectful of our residents and having them not be at a disadvantage or a non-perk in comparison to the employees. Have a less of a perk for being a resident than we afford the employees, if you want to play that game.
Again, we can wordsmith all day long. I just,
let's
wanna
wordsmith to
give-
say we are creating a more even playing field and we are
Treating our
making it
employees like
easier
residents.
to delineate cost, right? Because we can't, eliminating category. So everyone's good with this? Everyone's good with the rest of that document? Yes? Okay.
So we have to vote on the amendment first and then.
Let's vote on that. I was going to say, Michelle, where are we?
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett,
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson,
yes.
Councilmember Binkowski,
Yes.
Mayor Milan.
Yes. Okay, so we've approved the amendment. Now we'll approve the whole. That's where we are. Correct?
Councilmember Anderson,
I'm sorry, we're voting in the original now?
with the amendment, yes.
Oh, with, yes.
Councilmember Binkowski,
Yes.
Mayor Milan,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett.
Yes.
Okay, so we have approved a fee schedule for the upcoming year. We have made with one amendment, which would be to address the fees for retirees, no, for city employees to match that of residents. Okay, and that'll be addressed when the documents come out. Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on to item 9C, which is consideration of accepting proposal for a 5-year recreation plan.
I move to accept the proposal from, is it Carlisle and Wootman Associates in the amount of $16,200.
Mr. Riker?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The city's 5-year recreation plan expired in 2022. To be eligible for various grant opportunities, the city needs to have an updated plan. The administration received proposals from McKenna for $50,000, Giffords Webster for $19,760, and Carlisle Workman Associates for $16,230. The administration wishes to accept the quote from Carlisle Workman Associates in the amount of $16,230 for the development of its 5-year recreation plan. This item was briefed at the February 27, 2024 budget discussion and is included in the approved FY 24-25 budget.
Thank you.
So
Go ahead.
the only question I have is, did we always use an outside firm to do the plan, or has it ever been done in-house?
I can't speak to that. I don't believe it has been done in-house.
Well, because it would have been in 17, right, that if it expired in 22 and it was a 5-year plan, so in 17?
And I think that was that with McKenna? That was McKenna then.
It was McKenna that
Yes,
did
ma'am.
it? So we did use one before. Okay.
Any other questions, concerns? Okay, Michelle, roll call, please.
Councilmember Binkowski,
Yes.
Mayor Milan,
Yes,
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett,
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
thank you. We have just approved the acceptance of a proposal from Carlisle Wortman Associates in the amount of $16,230 for the development of the City of Clawson's 5-year recreation plan. We will move on to the next item, which is, this is a recurring thing that's always fun to think about, larvicide tablets, right?
I move the resolution requesting reimbursement from the Oakland County West Nile Virus Fund for the purchase of the West Nile
Funds to assist all Oakland County communities in a proactive program to eliminate the spread of West Nile virus. The resolution is necessary to receive reimbursement from Oakland County West Nile virus. County will reimburse the city $1,395.95 out of the eligible expenditures for the West solution should council approve it at this meeting. The reason for the delay was an internal misunderstanding, and the administration has addressed that.
Perfect. Any questions? Okay, roll call, please, Michelle.
Mayor Milan,
Yes, for a reimbursement for the Oakland County West Nile Virus Fund for the purchase of West Nile larvicide tablets as presented. Our next item is Chase Bank on behalf of the City of Clawson.
Finance Director as the positions for the City of Clawson current signatory designation of Kelly Rao be approved.
Support.
May sign any J.P. Morgan check to be authorized signatories. Please also remove former Finance Director Kelly Rao as the designated
Kelly now the only signatory?
to take in order to have access,
There's more than
or for continuity in case, people are.
I guess my question is 4 too many. So,
No, limited, that's what you're asking.
okay, so upper limit. We could add more than 4 for that.
Yes.
What's the standard practice?
Like a pension plan, which is through JP Morgan actually, and for the US and Canada, we actually have the business equivalent of these roles as our signatories, because not only can they, like sign for transactions, but any kind of like change to the policies or anything like that, plan changes or exceptions of documents relative to the account, they can sign them also. And so, and sometimes there's 2 dual signatures that are required, and so if you have people out or whatever. So I think it's very prudent to make it job specific, and I think 4 is, again, it's analogous to what I see in the business community.
You mentioned that this is a savings account that we want to change this to. I'm sure the city has other accounts, and how are those set up?
So I'd have to defer to the Finance Director as far as this did seem a little bit of a special case.
Yeah, we do majority of our accounts with PNC, and we do have internal control procedures which will require, anyone authorizing will require a secondary signature. So there won't be any individual action. It will be, our internal control procedure will have, whoever initiates, someone else will have to approve.
Okay, so with our usual PNC accounts,
Same way.
they're already set up the right
Yes.
way,
Yeah,
and not just Kelly.
Yeah, they're set up, that was and I think when I got here, we immediately allowed me to be one of the signers. But yeah, we always have procedures where the person initiating cannot also approve. So we do have that in place with all of our accounts.
So the current PNC account, how many authorized signatories are there?
Well, there's two, but it could be, there's three individuals that could sign.
So three-
Actually, technically four, because Joe was included. So there are four. There's
No, not going forward, currently where we are.
Yes.
With PNC, are there four?
There's four options, yes.
And the four individuals that are titles that are named here.
Yes, same four.
So we're basically bringing the Chase account into alignment with the PNC account.
Yes.
In terms of four signatories, of which two are required for any given transaction.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Roll call, please, Michelle.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett,
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Binkowski,
Yes.
Mayor Milan.
Yes. Thank you. We've just approved the designating signatories for the JP Morgan Chase Bank moving forward. Also removing the designation of Kelly Rao off of that account. Next up, we have a consideration of an ordinance to amend the City of Clausen Code of Ordinances, Chapter 86, Vegetation.
I move that the ordinance to amend the City of Clausen Code of Ordinances, Chapter 86, Article 2, to add subsection 86.43 to create a system for accepting donations of trees to the city public right-of-way, parks, and other public property from Clausen citizens be approved and moved to a second reading and adoption.
Support.
Yeah. If I may, it should be first reading and adoption, because this is the first
Oh,
reading.
it says moved,
Yeah.
but like approved and then it goes to
And then
second.
moved,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
That's
how I took it.
Motion and a second.
I support, yeah.
Do we have any questions or concerns, or, sorry, Mr. Raker, do you have?
Yes,
comments for
ma'am.
us?
Chapter 86 of the Clausen Code of Ordinances regulates trees, shrubs, and plants in the city as well as harmful vegetation. Over the years, residents, businesses, and others have inquired into the ability to donate trees to the city, particularly focusing on the right-of-ways, parks, and other public areas. The ordinance before you proposes the creation of a system map to be maintained at City Hall and on the city's website, designating appropriate locations for the donation and planting of trees by the community in the city. If you recall, this was, our city attorney brought this up at the last council meeting.
So does this include, like, can I do, and I don't know, I didn't see the map includes of where you can, it's going to create one, so, but my question is, if I didn't currently have a tree on my right of way, does that mean I can buy my own tree and have it planted?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh.
I would hope so.
Okay, cool. I think that's because people get concerned and then, but then I have to comply with the approved trees, right?
Correct.
So-
Yeah, so the ordinance, so this amendment obviously is to that Chapter 86, which has a bunch of obligations to all of us when it comes to trees, shrubs, vegetation, things of that nature. And there's a approved list of trees, or there's some trees that are not approved, so to speak. The Department of Public Works already has some obligations with respect to this. This just simply formalizes it, makes it a little simpler. It is rather cumbersome, not for any particular reason other than when you don't have something like this set up, usually as someone wishing to donate, and I've had this experience elsewhere, as I'm sure you've had it here, you don't know where to go. And getting an answer can be rather difficult. So this will just formalize the process and hopefully help out.
Cool.
Now, is there any other procedures? I mean, this ordinance is pretty, I guess, pretty short as to basically saying that we're going to create a map and allow people to do things. But is there any more procedures, and how will they be developed?
Well, so currently, I'll tell you what currently happens based on my experience in Clausen. I asked Trevor some time ago last year as to, I wanted to plant a couple of trees in Clausen. And he said, let me know the location and I'll check and see what's under there as far as obviously infrastructure, and I'll let you know. And he did, and he provided me with a couple of locations. It took him a little while. I presume this will help shorten that process. The process, I imagine, will still remain the same, where they will still have to check. But my hope in
mandating that they create a map, or they, get the go-ahead to create a map, and is that once they create those locations, once they, determine a series of locations, at least it'll be moving forward, it'll be easier for people to just simply plant on those approved locations. It'll be like a list of pre-approved locations. So, but I imagine there's still other, there's going to be some areas where they have enough infrastructure below to where it may not make sense, they're going to say no to. I'll work with them to develop the procedures separate and distinct. When I applied to him to plant the trees that I wanted to plant, he gave me some one-page form that he used for other things, I presume for digging, that I filled out with location and information. We'll improve that form to make it specific with respect to this.
Okay.
But the idea behind the ordinance being as simple and straightforward as it is to be just permissive in nature, as opposed to we currently don't have anything. So.
But aren't we at all concerned about people just planting? Because
Absolutely.
I'm not a great gardener. I put a lot of stuff in, and if it lives, I'm so happy, and if it doesn't, I go buy more. That's how the kind of gardener I am. And I feel like trees, if someone puts in a tree and you have to tend to it, and if you don't plant it right, and if you don't stake it, like depending on what people are bringing in, you want to make sure that we're setting them up for success. And this in no way obligates our DPW to work on any resident's behalf who wants to instill a tree, right?
Correct.
I think that's
Correct.
part of it as well.
That's correct. Yeah, but with respect to that concern, Madam Mayor, we can work with, on the administrative side, we can work with DPW to be able to, in that particular form that they currently have, we'll improve it, and we'll give some guidance in there about how to go about, proper planting procedures, whatever directions that everybody may need. I'm the same way. I just have a passion for this. I'm terrible at it, but I have a passion for it.
Yeah.
And I'm just utilizing shamelessly my position to be able to influence this community. But I think that's something, that concern I have as well, just on account of my inability to plan something properly. And I'll work with DPW to be able to get to that, for that portion to be successful.
Okay, and since Councilmember Shepherd's not here today, and he really does like planting, we could perhaps just give everyone his information, and he could be our technical
True.
specialist on this,
True
right?
statement.
That would be fun.
I'm sure he'll have a lot to say at the second reading.
Okay.
Hold on, I do have a question just on the general concept. If I have a right-of-way that has no tree at all, and I like it that way, can some generous soul come up and say, you know what, I'd like to, put an elm tree there or whatever? Can it be planted against my will?
Well, it does belong to the city, but that said, no, probably we wouldn't treat it that way. This is more, and you notice, public right-of-way here, we'll probably look at the main drags in the city, and then look at the park, and look at other public property where we may have. With respect to the individuals just in front of your home, I imagine in our form, we'll have to have a checklist of homeowner approval, something
Sure.
like that.
Makes
But
sense.
I didn't see it wise to have that portion in an ordinance. We don't want to create those kind of relationships, that's all.
Okay.
Okay, roll call, please, Michelle.
Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Binkowski,
Yes.
Mayor Milan,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett.
Yes.
Okay, we've approved the first reading of an ordinance to amend Chapter 86, Article 2, and add Section 8643 to create a system for accepting donations of trees for the city of Coucil. We will move on to item 9G, which is consideration of canceling the July 2nd, 2024 regular city council meeting.
I move that the regular city council meeting scheduled for July 2nd, 2024 be canceled.
Support for purposes of discussion.
Let's discuss.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Sorry.
Per the city charter, section
I did say
407.
let's discuss.
Section 407, city council meetings shall be held in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. Regular meetings of the city council shall be held at such time as may be prescribed by resolution, provided that it shall meet regularly, not less than once each month. The July 2nd meeting falls within the week of 4th of July festivities. The administration is suggesting canceling that regular city council meeting. The necessary business of the city can be conducted at the July 16th regular city council meeting.
Okay, now we can discuss. Anyone?
The silence is.
No, I was going to give someone else a chance to talk. So I don't necessarily support this. If it was like the day before 4th of July or on 4th of July, it's 2 days well before. We're limiting the community's ability to communicate with the council and speak publicly to once that month, and there's stuff going on. And I think that the residents, I would maybe support having a short meeting, but there's still stuff going on that needs to be addressed, and the community needs the opportunity to speak and address the council and the administration. So I don't like day of or the day after.
Items, where are we with?
As the Royal Oak city engineer and their traffic consultant, that was their available date between the two. And then you have the city manager's annual evaluation.
And I also know there's some ordinances that you guys have been talking about that maybe could use a very light agenda to get those addressed so that there's plenty of time. We don't run till 11 o'clock. I mean, there's always stuff that comes up. And to take away an opportunity to meet, and again, like I said, giving the public the opportunity to interact with us, I don't like it.
With respect to the ordinances specifically, I have a prepaid vacation at the next meeting, unfortunately. So not that, you couldn't have that conversation without me, but presumably you would need the attorney. We'll have somebody from my office, but they won't have obviously the participation knowledge that I would bring, just FYI.
I don't particularly care. I mean, it doesn't matter to me.
Yes.
If I can point out, the festivities for the support of those as well, so.
I'm like Councilmember Binkowski. I don't feel strongly either which way. I do know that in Clawson, 4th of July is not a day. It's like Christmas. It's a season. So, yeah, if it eases people's burdens for the city and that to cancel the meeting, I'm fine with that. So
That's how I feel as well. I would be happy to show up, but if there's nothing that we would be putting off by not being here, this is not the first time this has been discussed, right? This was discussed, changing meeting, according to what was said just a few minutes ago, the fact that we're not mandated to have 2 meetings a month any longer allows us a little bit of flexibility. And I think we talked about this, November, December, that there may be a couple of times a year. I think we were all adamant that we did not want to go to once a month meetings. We want to be able to meet with the public, and we want to be able to have conversation and open dialogue with the city administration on a regular basis. But we also, I think most of us stated that for a busy holiday season, we probably wouldn't be opposed to it. And one of them was this time, and the other one was somewhere around the Christmas holiday. But saying that,
I recall the same conversation.
Yeah.
So it was let's see what it comes up, and if nothing's really pressing on the agenda, I'm fine with canceling it.
and if something comes up, Mr. Ricker, you would have no problem calling us back for a meeting, would you?
I wouldn't
love it.
hesitate, ma'am.
Okay. Any other thoughts on this, or should we go to a vote? Let's have a roll call vote, Michelle.
Councilmember Binkowski.
Just noted that we will be foregoing our regularly scheduled meeting of July 2nd, just to help out administration and just give everyone an opportunity to take a little vacation if they so choose. So thank you for that. And then we added item 9H, which is discussion of the Coucil Skate Park.
Madam Mayor, I move to request the city manager meet with members of the Coucil Skate Park Committee regarding proposed improvements to the Coucil Skate Park and report back to the city council no later than the August 20th, 2024 meeting.
Support.
We all received an email a few months back before the budget was approved from the Coucil Skate Park Committee, and they were saying that they may have found a grant to do some improvements to the park. And the purpose of this resolution is just to basically ask the city manager to meet with them and see what, what he thinks should or should not be done, and talk to us about it at a later date.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, there's actually a committee for the skate park. I know when they put that thing in, it was amazing. The place was busy right out of the gate. It's still very busy round the clock whenever I'm going by the park there. And I live right by the park, so I see a lot of skateboarders. It also acts as a magnet. You see kids skateboarding all sorts of businesses. Once they built that skate park, it's like it just attracted them in. And now you hardly see any loose skateboarders. They're all right there at the park. So if that committee, again, is strong enough to form its own committee, I guess they deserve to be heard.
Right, because we don't want loose skateboarders. That's funny. Okay, then,
Not a problem, ma'am.
thank you. Roll call, please, Michelle.
Mayor Milan,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett,
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Binkowski.
Yes.
Thanks. We've just made a motion that our city manager will meet with the skate park committee and take along whomever he wants and come back with us with some exciting news about skate parks. That'll be good. Moving on to item 10, do we have any unfinished business? Moving on to number 11, do we have any public comments for items not on the agenda? We do not. We'll move on to item number 12, which is the city clerk's report. Michelle?
My report tonight is that most of those that were in the affected area should have received their temporary precinct change card in the mail. The absentee ballot applications have been mailed as well. And ballots will be available beginning June 22nd for processing. We hope to have them mailed like the beginning of July. That's our goal. The one thing I wanted to mention here publicly is that Michigan, the state of Michigan is doing statewide mailings, which always makes our job very interesting because what happens is they get bombarded with mailings and then they don't understand what they are, or it's confusing the matter. But they've got 3 separate mailings that will be going out in the next few weeks. The first mailing is an early voting informational piece that is going out to every home to let them know that early voting will, when it begins, and that they have that opportunity to vote early. The second piece is a pre-registration mailing, which is going out to those students, young people that are between 16 and 17 and a half years of age, which will be 18 by November for the general election. They're sending out a pre-registration notice to direct them to an online site to pre-register for the election. And that would make things a little bit easier than them waiting till last minute. And so they're sending a mailing out to this specific group to hopefully get them registered to vote earlier than, the last minute, running in to register and then go vote. The third piece is voter registration mailer that will go out to anyone that is not registered to vote that's eligible to vote. So there'll be a lot of correspondence hitting the mailboxes here in the city. And obviously, we'll receive calls, if there's any questions. Since we just received this, I think that I'll put something up on the website, to just, maybe an informational piece it's about 2 pages long, but I'll briefly put something up there so that people can at least see it on the site. I'm trying to clean up the actual election page with really, the most important things on that first page when you first open. So I'm working on that right now. And I think that's all I have tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Newshire, do you have a city attorney's report for us?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Very briefly, I just wanted to tell you that, obviously, as you know, the Ordinance Review Committee met today, had another, what I thought was very good meeting, and we have a few items coming up at the second meeting now, or rather, what would have been the second, but it'll be the first meeting in July. Otherwise, Madam Mayor, there's been, in our municipal attorney listserv, a lot of city attorneys are reporting that there's a lot of initiatory petitions, kind of similar in nature to the one that we had heard was circulating around town. It appears to be an effort that is, almost statewide. So I imagine we're going to be seeing some activity in that regard. Just figured I'd let you know.
Great, Thank you.
That anticipated for August or November?
It's a good question. We won't know until we receive it, but I imagine November.
So what's the filing date for August?
That I'll have
Sorry.
to rely on.
Jeopardy
my
question, 200 points. What is it?
I'm thinking it's August 13th. It's very similar to our deadline for getting our proposal, as far as getting the language up
So that would be for November.
for November. I don't think they can get, obviously, August is.
August is
ballots are
passed, you
printed.
think?
Yes, so
Yeah.
we're done. It will be
Okay.
for November.
Gotcha.
Okay.
I do have a question as far as subject of short-term rentals.
Yes, sir.
We recently, well, probably a year ago now, passed an ordinance that kind of provided basic guidance. And I remember I mentioned to you that I felt that we probably need something a little more restrictive and defined on top of that. And you had forwarded that to the planning commission. I was wondering, has any progress been made on that?
Not to my understanding, but I know that the planners, Nick is going to correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm trying to remember where the last of it is. But I think it went back a couple of times to planning, and then nothing, I think, came as a result, or at least there was no movement. Am I correct, Nick? Will you please?
The planning commission discussed the zoning and how we would zone short-term rentals. And there's been some discourse among the planning commission on how to do that. They did request a joint meeting between the planning commission and council to discuss that. I think that we're still trying to figure out how to address short-term rentals in the community, just because there is some ambiguity in the law on how municipalities can properly enforce them. And so we're still discussing a bit internally on how we want to approach that.
That's kind of what I remember from the couple of planning commission meetings. There was some pending legislation or something like that. Is that still out there pending, or?
There was one, well, now I'm trying to time it with respect to the planning commission meeting, and I can't, but I know the legislation that I spoke of, that I think Councilmember Shepherd inquired into and was familiar with as well, if you recall, that legislation simply died in committee.
Okay.
They never advanced it. Now, I don't know if you're referring to that or something else, but
I just remember, I
Yeah.
think Aaron Redmond
I do-
asking about legislation and.
I think that's what she probably meant.
Yes,
Yeah.
I remember that being mentioned probably about a year ago, is
Yeah.
that we were waiting something out of Lansing to give a more definitive direction to go.
Yeah, it did not. That particular piece of legislation, it gets, with every new legislature, it gets sort of re-upped and goes up until a certain point in the committee. It looked like it had impetus last time around, which is what drove me personally to bring the issue before you and to have the registration and inspection, to have something in the books, just on account of what I thought at the time may well happen in the state legislature. But the worst fears did not materialize in that sense. But they re-up it every time at every legislature. So one of these times it may occur, but of course, we wouldn't know.
So for the foreseeable future, anything we're going to craft as an ordinance, we've already got the legal direction from Lansing.
Well, they haven't spoken to that end.
No, but I'm saying there's existing laws at the state of Michigan level, I assume.
There's a couple of items, but nothing certainly, well, nothing that I'm familiar with which deals with zoning, because I think if I recall, your concern was with respect to zoning. To that end, the only thing we cannot do is zone it out of existence, right? You have to be mindful of that. Other than that, there can be zoning consideration. Whether that is wise or not, different calculation altogether. Obviously, the back and forth that occurred at the planning commission just basically got to that particular point. But there's wisdom in dealing with it in more comprehensive fashion than we currently have, perhaps. I know that I have some hesitation with respect to, being overly restrictive on a category like that, particularly because we don't necessarily see an issue right now, and I understand that you received the communication, but there's only about 4 or 5 short-term rentals in the city, at least that I'm aware of.
Yes.
Registered.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
registered, of
Well,
course.
they have to be registered, right?
Well,
They have to be advertised somewhere, like you're on Airbnb or whatever the other one is, or something like that. Otherwise, you can have one, just no one's going to know about it or rent it, right?
Right, but my point is, the ordinance we crafted last year basically said it had to be registered. And there were various basic requirements.
Yes,
So
yes.
anyone who's not registered,
Operating in the black, yeah.
Okay.
In the red, whatever that is.
so basically the police can come and
Yes, sir.
shut them
Code
down, shall we
enforcement,
say.
yes.
Okay, enforce
Yes.
the load. All
Yes,
right.
sir.
So, okay, so I guess in the end, if we're gonna craft a more specific ordinance or revise, I mean, we've got a basic ordinance in place.
We do.
Going forward, I assume we'll craft something that can withstand a lawsuit.
Well, I don't, yes and no. I don't know that we're talking about something to withstand. Again, if I remember our conversation correctly, your concern was, dealt with zoning consideration, which is the only reason why it would be in front of planning. Planning will consider zoning, meaning, is this the kind of activity that would be open all throughout the city? Or are there areas that are more susceptible to it versus others that are not? Does it make sense to have it at city center? Does it make sense to be for, short-term rentals to be out in residential R1, R2 zoning? Those are the considerations that planning has. Obviously, there's other considerations that this body can have. But I think zoning probably makes the most sense, but at the same time is the one that has the most trepidation as well. It starts there, it comes back to you, obviously.
So if we think we only have 4 residents that have these properties, and we have 2 residents that have frequent concerns,
And then it would be a code enforcement issue, ma'am.
right, and I get it, and this is what we talked about before, right? We approved this because we were advised to not approve it, right? Like
Yes.
the whole idea was you can't say no, yet there are communities out there who've adamantly said no and are sticking to it, and then we welcomed it to a small percentage, and we have residents who are suffering from it. And the email that we all received this week talks about dates from May 13th, 16th, 31st, June 8th, and June 9th through 15th. And all, annoyances if you live nearby and you're taking care of your property. And then there's another resident that we all know that's had concerns as well on numerous occasions that has one near her house as well. So I guess it's something we probably should look at to see. It doesn't really help the neighbors if the police come late in the night, early in the morning after you've called them because you've been annoyed all night long. That's not a good neighbor, right? And these people are short-term, they don't care. They're there for whatever reason and they're gonna leave. And we gotta trust most people are good and most people aren't gonna do that. But if it happens once or twice, you're not happy. But if it happens at the occurrence of this, and these people are pretty diligent, I'm assuming this is correct, very correct, because I've heard from a couple different residents in that area over the past week. So, we have to do our best to create community for them, to take care of our primary stakeholders first before we welcome other people in to just have a place to stay for the night or the week.
So sorry.
I'm sorry, I guess I'd like to know what are our next steps to working on this short-term rental, ordinance revision? Should we do it in the ordinance committee soon? Or should we have this meeting with the planning commission that they had requested? Because, I can see the issue with people renting Airbnbs specifically just for parties. And that's really now, I don't think what even Airbnbs really should be for, so. And it can be very annoying, especially since, okay, we're having a party this week, and then there's a party next weekend, and, and so on and so forth. And if that were my neighbor, I'd be up in arms too, so.
It's kind of my question is, if there's complaints and the police are called, do the people that are renting in that moment get ticketed or a code violation? So there's nothing on the landlord to stop because they're not being affected by their renter's bad behavior. Those people are going to come and go. Like maybe that's the whatever.
I presume, I understand the concern, the concern, that makes perfect sense. I presume, but I presume without knowing, and I'll follow up with all of you, I presume that if some such activity were to occur where the police are called, code enforcement will, as a follow-up, find out. And because you have a licensing component to this, right, inspection and licensing component to our current ordinance, that means that they can revoke someone's ability.
There you go, yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's why we, designed it the way that it was designed. So I'll follow up to make sure. Obviously, I wasn't privy to whatever email the body received. Not that I needed to be,
Yeah.
but, the code, that email will make sure that it finds its way to code enforcement, and they'll take the appropriate actions going forward.
There you go.
But you could revoke someone's license and they could still continue to to rent their properties,
But the
right?
next time there's an issue with someone renting and the police go and they go, oh, we're renters, then, then you know that they're still renting it, right?
Yes,
I mean, so to the extent that they rent it and the people just, drink tea and quilt or something like that and have no issues, no one cares, right? It's the parties and the loud music renting that people have issues with, right?
Okay. So you have an assignment, thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate that, our neighbors appreciate that. Anything else for our city attorney? Okay, moving on to our city manager's report, Mr. Raker?
Thank you, Mayor. As you previously stated, tomorrow is Juneteenth, and it's a federal holiday, and again, all city buildings are closed in its observation. A big thank you to city staff for leading the charge in setting up and publicizing our cooling centers. For those of you who do not know, the city of Coucil has established a 24-hour cooling center inside City Hall. It is at the north entrance at 425 North Main, which is this address, and it will be open 24 hours from Monday until probably from June 17th to the 21st, which is Friday. We also have the cooling center at Hunter, which has specific hours, which is located at 509 Fisher Court. Those hours are from 7:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. It's closed tomorrow. For more information, you can contact City Hall. Special thanks on this effort to Library Director Jenny Ganad, Director of Parks and Recreation Senior Center Scott Jennings, Police Chief Kelly Baus, and Communications Economic Development Specialist Brandon Birch. Their initiative and cooperation were truly reflective of the Clawson community spirit. 4th of July week celebration events in Clawson begin as early as this Sunday, June 23rd, with the Freedom Race through the evening of July 4th. Please visit Clawson 4th of July. That's the Clawson and then number 4, TH, of July.com. So Clawson4thofjuly.com for specific details on how to participate and to volunteer.
Excellent. Any questions or comments for our city manager? No? Okay, thank you for that report. And we'll move to city council report comments. Councilmember Binkowski?
Nothing for me.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem?
So, and I know we have a whole litany of ordinances to look at. But having heard from some residents who've experienced some form of harassment and ethnic intimidation or things along those lines, I would like to see us add something to an ordinance to give people relief. I've heard tell of people who regularly get go back to your own country letters put in their mailbox, or get dog feces thrown on their driveway saying, you guys are scum, you should go away, or you don't belong here, and things like that. And I know that there's opportunities to file a police report, but sometimes that doesn't give people the sense of security. And then coupled with, we did a LGBTQ proclamation to protect that community. And those, I know that people have talked about, if they have a pride flag, they get nasty emails. There was the lady that had the Black Lives Matter, and someone put grass killer to make a nasty message on her lawn. And I guess I would just like to see if we can explore, and I know we have a list of ordinances, so it can go at the end, but to explore something to address sort of these circumstances so people have that extra sense of protection. We're the little city with the big heart, but we have these really scary things happening, and I just to have something on the books to give people that extra sense that we care about their concerns. We don't want things like that happening to people. So after that diatribe, I'd just like to make a motion that we add an exploration of some sort of ordinance protecting against intimidation of various kinds. That's generic enough.
Support.
So this would almost be like a harassment, anti-harassment
Well,
ordinance?
but it's more specific, because, it's against a lot of harassed people, right? But anything that's, specifically targeted to something ethnic or sexual orientation or those types of things. And I'm not saying I have it all worked out, but I'd like to add it to the list of things that are being explored so that we can, when people say, when you're handing out literature, you're running into people at the park and they say this or that happens, we can say, hey, you know what? We don't tolerate those kinds of things in this little city with a big heart, and we've addressed it with an ordinance, or we addressed it some other way so that you have those protections. Take a look at here, and this is how we're looking to protect you.
Mr. Raker?
Madam Mayor, I would suggest in the future, if anyone's approached by council, council members approached with these types of events that have occurred, that they highly encourage them to make a police report.
Oh, of course.
Because you can make all the ordinances you would like, and if the person is not willing to do a police report, I mean, so that's the real crux there. Is people need to
Unfortunately,
be able to
police
do that.
reports, sorry to interrupt, but unfortunately, police reports have a standard bar that needs to be met, whereas an ordinance is, something that could perhaps, we've seen instances where my neighbor who planted ornamental foliage by their street sign got an ordinance violation for planting ornamental foliage by a street sign. So there's a lower standard bar for something like that being addressed. And
If I may, I'm happy to provide you the information, of course. I'll give you, and that sounded to me, that was the crux of the motion, to be able to provide some information
Yes,
concerning
yes,
this. So,
yes.
I will, of course, be happy to put it all together and provide counsel at a future meeting. These are criminal ordinances that we're talking about, it sounds like. Criminal ordinances have to follow certain parameters.
Okay.
And we have what are called, codified jury instructions, which contain elements with respect to any and all ordinances. They're not as sort of loosey-goosey as other ordinances, such as the ones that we passed today about vegetation, for example. As such, we have, in order to follow those parameters, we have to have certain standards. And Mr. Raker is, of course, absolutely correct. It all stems from a report to the police. Now, concerning ethnic intimidation, which I'm obviously, I'm personally susceptible to and understand it very well myself. Concerning that particular topic, I can say that, as you may or may not know, both the federal government as well as our state statute covers ethnic intimidations, and they have certain sanctions contained therein. The state, I can't recall on top of my head the federal sanction, but the state sanction punishes someone that is found guilty of ethnic intimidation with up to 2 years in prison. We, as a municipality, are limited with up to 93 days in jail. You can, perhaps in your wisdom, find that is appropriate to have here. But I wanted you to, and I'll provide you the fuller information, but just so you know, this is already covered by state statute.
Right.
It's already
Understood.
covered by the federal statute. We would be basically taking away sanction and making it less if we were to do it here, not more.
Wouldn't a mission statement of a sort serve the same purpose? Because we have no teeth, right?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Basically,
you-
other than
you-
going
depends how we
through
craft it, that we
outside.
could have some teeth, right, more than
Well,
a mission statement.
I tell you
I
the
don't mean
truth
to
right now.
minimize it,
Yeah.
to say a mission statement, but something of that sort that just says we're committed to, like we're
Yeah, our
committed to all the other
criminal
things.
yeah, absolutely. But just on the criminal portion of it, if we're thinking along those lines, you're limited to 93 days, up to 93 days punishment. That's it. For something that currently is being sanctioned for up to 2 years, and with a lot of wisdom, probably. So my 2 cents will be, we're reducing it. And I don't know if there's wisdom in reducing it.
So all I'm asking is, let's do the investigation, let's get all the parameters and caveats and all that information out there, have the discussion in public so that we can say, at bare minimum, if we decide, hey, we can't really do anything, it's not, but at least let's look at it and see what kind of extra protections, extra comfort we can give to anyone who's experiencing anything like that. That's all I'm asking.
So this would be a motion to launch an investigation on the part of the city attorney in presenting something to us.
To add to the stuff that's going to be examined during the ordinance process, an ordinance along those lines, to have them gather information and present what can and cannot be done.
Did he not already do that, though?
No.
Or Rennis will
We
more
don't- we
time
don't
help
have-
you do that?
Yeah, we don't have an ordinance that, a specific ordinance against ethnic intimidation. I'm going to go on a limb and say I'm not aware of any local municipality that does. I may be found,
I read you being quoted in our magazine saying that, so I know that. I came in with that knowledge. But I mean, let's see. That's all I'm
I
asking.
understood.
Let's see.
But I'm just simply responding to Councilmember Anderson's question. So, we don't have it, but we do have ordinance obviously against, we have an ordinance that's called menacing, we have people making threats. We have an ordinance against harassment. We have a lot of, ordinances around the topic. It's just we don't have something, because we deal with proofs, obviously, in our district court. And the level of proof required on an ethnic intimidation can be cumbersome based on whatever the act may be. Anyways, because we have an active, I think we should, I understand, if you vote for it, I will of course provide the information.
Cool.
Okay.
Yes, sir?
Due to the, it's a bit of an ambiguous request. However, I think internally, the administration can make sure that we'll run this to
Absolutely.
ground. I don't necessarily think it is necessary for a vote of council. We can
And
address this.
That's also true. You don't require a vote. I mean, obviously you have a vote.
There's a motion on the floor, yeah.
Right, there's a motion on the floor, but, this is something that, at the asking, I would provide you the information. Thank you, Mr. Regan.
Okay. All right, so we do have a motion on the floor.
Are we-
Michelle?
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett,
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Binkowski,
Yes.
Mayor Milan.
Yes. So our city attorney is going to bring back information to look into ethnic intimidation
Ordinance stuff.
ordinances for moving forward. Do you have anything else?
No,
That's okay. Councilmember Anderson?
No, I have nothing.
Okay, on that, well, I would like to say thank you to the Friends of the Blair Memorial Library. They hosted a concert last night in the excruciating heat and had a lot of people there and a really great band. So I wanted to say thank you to them for all the work that they put in to bring people together. And they will have another concert in August at some point. They always do a great job. They also presented an award to Jeannie Nananovich for, I think it was called Friend of the Year, for all of the work she did for spearheading, getting a garden over there at the gazebo, and for many other things she does. She's a wonderful volunteer for the Friends of the Library, so congratulations to her. I'd like to say in advance thank you to our administration, DPW, Parks and Rec, Police, Fire, Library, 4th of July Committee, and the many, many volunteers who will be coming together over the next week to bring a little bit of hometown USA to Clawson and let us celebrate our nation's independence together safely. And I just hope everyone has a wonderful time doing that. There are a lot of opportunities to volunteer, as our city manager told us earlier. If you can do that, go to their website. They would appreciate any help. There's also a parade. If you want to be in a parade or help out there, there's lots of opportunities, and that is so fun. And then also congratulations to Hajime Sato for Sozai Restaurant, who received a James Beard Award, which is amazing, not just for him, but also that we have something so great in our community. And then just thank you to all of you for a nice, productive meeting. Would someone like to interrupt me and do
move
that?
that we adjourn.
I was going to let you interrupt me. Do we have a second?
Support.
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Roll call, please, Michelle.
Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Binkowski,
Yes.
Mayor Milan.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful 4th of July. We'll see you back mid-July. Meeting adjourned.